Hello, everyone. Welcome to In Pursuit of Signal. My name is Jose Angel Castro. I'm your host, and today I am welcoming an incredibly special guest um, who I've had the fortune of knowing since he was young. He is a former student. He is a friend. He is now what to me is a family member. We've known each other long enough and seen enough of our lives to call each other family. He's my surrogate nephew. In my family, we have all nieces in my family, but I have a couple of dear to my heart surrogate nephews that make me very happy.
Yeah,
He's a
it
freelance
might be
digital
time.
professional. Freelance digital professional and a real entrepreneurial spirit, deep thinking, highly intelligent human being. I'd like to welcome Justin Wiggins to In Pursuit of Signal. Justin.
Thank you so much, Jose. It's my pleasure to be here. And I was really looking forward to this for a little minute. Because as you know, this is sort of like it's almost like a fast forward through time.
Yeah.
This journey started a decade ago.
Yeah. For those who don't know, my first guest on this show was Madison Clark, who was a fellow student of Justin's in a class in 2012 that I wrote called My I World. And My I World is the origin story of In Pursuit of Signal. We had a class that was a Socratic discussion about the social implications and impacts of technology on our everyday lives. Fast forward to now, that's what In Pursuit of Signal is. It gives me the opportunity. I feel in my imagination, I'm still talking to y'all, but now as grown-ups. So it feels like we can get into a much deeper, more nuanced, more grown-up conversation than we had when we were back in the day, back in 2012. Even though, I didn't look to treat y'all like you were kids who didn't know anything. I really tried to be respectful of the experience that you did have in the world and how you felt about a topic that was becoming increasingly important in your lives. Could see where things might go, and it was the opportunity for us to talk it out, right? And just like this is the opportunity for us to talk it out. So with that, I would ask you the question, when you think back to our shared experience in My I World, what might you say would be the thing that stuck with you the most, the thing that was the most influential for you? Tough question, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Only because there was a lot. That class was very, very ahead of its time. And I would say one of the main things that stuck with me, though, was the way that we had to think critically about what our own futures would look like.
Right.
As teenagers. And there's a lot that goes through your head as a teenager. You're already in a ever-changing world, and your own life is changing really fast. You're developing very fast, and your thought processes are accelerating, and your ideas about the world are accelerating. And we were in an interesting time where, this technology we see now was sort of being thought about. And we saw little glimpses of it back then. So we could see how quickly technology was rapidly changing, but you really challenged us to think very deeply. And when we thought deeply, you would be like, no, let's go a little deeper. Let's go a little deeper.
That sounds like me.
Yep. And really think about the implications of what it would look like for the world that we maybe envisioned, or maybe, in some cases, the world that we were sort of wary of as well. So, yeah.
What's interesting that everybody listening or watching should know too is that this topic has been a topic I'm been super passionate about for such a long time. And Justin and Madison, and later you'll meet Odawachi, were all part of that origin. And we've stayed in touch this entire time, often talking about this very subject. And when I say subject is, it's extremely broad. Um, and it splinters. So any one thing that you talk about can easily splinter into another few things. And over today's conversation, I'm excited to see what comes of it. But you and I have shared a lot of passion about this
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
We're constantly sending each other stuff on Instagram, things that we see. We share, following certain accounts, especially stuff about AI. Um, so it's a passion project, and I'm happy to share this first part of this passion project with you, because we do definitely talk about this a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an honor. It's an honor. I'm curious to see in long form, in this setting where your head is at about a lot of things that I don't even know what you could possibly ask me here, but I know it's going to be great.
uh, yeah, we got some shit to talk about, when you think back to your experience with My Eye World, what carries over to your experience with technology now? Does anything did anything that you experienced or thought about or considered back then actually impact your life now?
Yeah. I would say one of the main things is the social aspect. We talk a lot about the social implications of technology
Mm-hmm.
on
Mm-hmm.
people and how a lot of the dynamics would change. What we were looking at in 2012 was, I would say, to a degree, people, even at that time, although we have Facebook and although we had the beginnings of Instagram and although we had all these different types of people, everyone had a cell phone, iPhones were already in the public sphere.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, there was like an inflection point that happened a few years later where everybody's time got commodified.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I don't think that was one of the things that I had thought about, and then we had talked about, which is how people's interactions with each other and how we spend time with each other and how we, carry ourselves in front of each other, and how much time we spend on social media, how much time we spend, on these devices that we have, what that will look like for the kids who are now like 10 years old now today. Um, I think the way that technology has affected time is really interesting.
It is interesting. I find that incredibly interesting, because the assumption, or the thing that we get sold on a regular basis, is that our use of technology, our relationship to technology. Now, I'm gonna do a little sidebar here, because I often talk about the relationship to technology because I feel like it's gone beyond the use of tools. We're now in a place where we have an emotional connection to our machines that humans have never had with any technology throughout human history, except for now, right? But we're sold on a regular basis that our relationship with technology should buy us more time. Then why do we always feel like there's not enough time?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think? I have an opinion on it, but why do you
Okay.
think?
Okay. So I think it. Okay. I think at that time, me included, a lot of people were techno optimists, and so
Mm.
we had like a rose-colored view about what technology would do for us.
Huh.
And so
Huh.
now
I'm
that we're
interested. Keep
seeing,
going.
now that we're seeing what it has done for us and is doing for us right now, and
Uh-huh.
how we thought maybe we'd be okay. I want to stay on the time thing. Um, okay, I feel like it's twofold.
Hmm.
We don't feel like we have enough time because we've inadvertently given up our time to the device.
Oh, oh, yeah,
You know,
yeah. To the
within
actual use of the thing.
to the use of the
Right,
thing,
right. Uh-huh.
but we don't see it because we get sucked into the thing.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was sucked into the thing up until
Wow,
recently,
that's an
honestly.
interesting paradox. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we thought it would buy us more time. And so it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing where we're supposed to have more time. It's supposed to free things up. It's
Hmm.
supposed to make things easier so that we can spend more time, or so I thought,
Hmm.
doing things that were more human, you
Yeah,
know,
frolicking
spending
through
time,
the woods because I have time
you
to go
know,
out to the mountains. Yeah.
right, exactly, exactly. And the phone would do things for us to make that easier and that type of thing. I don't think we could have foreseen to a degree becoming almost like a slave to the time we spend on the technology.
Interesting.
A
So,
lot of
so
people,
it is actually, it in and of itself is actually a time suck.
it can be, it can be,
Interesting.
and yeah,
Interesting.
it the time. I'll put it this way: the time we were supposed to spend on it, doing things that would free up more time, isn't what happened. Now the time that we spend on it is just spent doing things on the thing that aren't freeing up
It,
what we thought it would free up.
yeah, yeah. It's like a reality that folds in on itself
Yeah,
because
yeah.
its purpose as it was sold to us was that it would free up time, but we spend so much time on it itself that we don't have the free time we thought we would have away from it.
Supposed to
Interesting.
make life easier. It was supposed to make life easier, and it has in many ways. But then there's the double-edged sword, you know.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to something that you said a minute ago. You said back then people were technological or digital optimists. Do you feel like now people are technological or digital pessimists? Interesting question.
Hmm.
Hmm. Because one of the things that I think is important for this forum, for this circle, for this conversation is that we keep it as objective as possible. We keep it as non-judgmental in terms of right or wrong, but looking at what it is, right? Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I have my opinions. I have my personal opinions about these things based on my culture, based on my upbringing, based on a lot of different things, based on my understanding of technology, based on my understanding of human behavior. I have my opinions, but my opinions are not as important to me as revealing for people what is actually happening, right? Um, and I do my best to say whenever it's my opinion that this is my opinion.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, this time thing is interesting. So are people now, as we get deeper into our relationship with with our technology, I'm giggling because it reminds me of getting deeper into our relationship with humans, right? So as we get deeper into our relationship with technology, do you feel that in your world, in your social life, amongst your peers, that people are becoming a little bit more pessimistic? Are you?
You know, to a degree, I don't think we're completely pessimistic yet. At least from the
Hmm.
conversations I've had with people,
Hmm.
talk about these things. People are still avid lovers and users of it. I just think like the rose tinted glasses that we had, I have been taken off, and we see it for what it is, which is what you're describing here, which is what you just
Right.
described. Um, we've seen how social media transformed from just sharing into whatever it is now. I don't even know how to describe it in many
Yeah.
corners of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just vapid with what some people will call brain rot and all this type of stuff.
Yeah. Doom scrolling, blah blah blah.
Doom scrolling,
Comparison
which was
culture. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Comparison culture, still huge. You know, I don't think it ended a few years ago just because it's not as many, wannabe Kim K's popping up on Instagram wanting to get
Right.
followers, that and third, at the same rate, I should say. And maybe that's just because we've already seen it now. And so us being exposed in the way that we have, I think we've just seen the reality. And what's strange is I think it just, particularly social media, exposed the reality of us,
Mm-hmm.
who we are as
Mm-hmm.
people. One area I think people are sort of iffy about right now is AI,
Mm-hmm.
just because we've seen what happens. I mean, we saw the Congress hearings with Mark Zuckerberg. We saw how big tech, you know, started as some benevolent thing that everybody enjoys. To we found out that they were spying on us, and we found out that they were exploiting our data, and we found out that
Right.
we were the products, and that's why it's actually free. And once people started realizing and being exposed to that, um, you know, it, it's in some people's mouths it left a bad taste. Um, Now, did that stop people from using it? Not necessarily.
That was you just took the words right out of my mouth.
Right.
Even with that knowledge, does that mean people stop? And we know they didn't. So what's that about?
I'd have to think on that one. I want your perspective. I want to see your perspective on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all of this stuff is super nuanced. It's super complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was talking. I met this gentleman. I was in a neighborhood doing a photo shoot the other day, and I was using a drone. And the next door neighbor to the place where I was working came out after I was done and engaged me in a conversation about drones. And we were talking about the use of tools, right? And obviously, this gentleman was into guns. I'm not against guns. I can't say, I can't say whatever. What I'm against is, or I'm not even against, what I'm super cognizant of is human nature, is human behavior, right? So if I put a drone as a tool in the hands of somebody who has ill intent, they will do bad things with that drone. Whereas I, who am a licensed professional pilot and who have a different perspective on what that tool should be used for, will not, right? Because I have a different perspective on the ethics of how to use a drone, right?
Right.
So when we come to our use of technology, the tool is the social media, the tool that was originally sold to us as a way to stay connected with people who are at a distance. Right? When we look back to the beginnings of Facebook, it was very much sold as a way for grandma to keep in touch with her grandkids, or for you to keep in touch with your old high school friends, and sharing in that way in community. What it evolved into, I think, is a study in human behavior.
Right.
That's where you take the tool and you turn it into something else. And that human behavior, I think, worked on both the user side and on the developer side, the ownership side, the people who are actually making the social media. Because obviously, one person says something or a few people say something that's out of hand. Does the platform then put the kibosh on that and say, or when more people start to chime in and more people are engaging with that kind of behavior, do you allow it to get more engagement?
Right. Right.
And I think that's where we are in terms of how we utilize social media to this day. Instagram, I loved Instagram in the beginning because it allowed me to show my photographs. It allowed me to show people what I'm working at, what I'm taking. And then the self-facing camera made it so that it really started to become this sort of what I call selfishness, where I'm constantly
Selfie.
pointing where I'm constantly pointing that camera at myself, and I have to, as some form of validation, I have to then re-up that validation. So if, the person over there is looking cute in a mirror selfie, I have to look cute in a mirror selfie too. Human behavior. It's not the tool. It's not that Instagram made us do that. It's that's what we chose. Is that a choice? I don't know. If you're taken away from by it, is it a choice? But that's what we chose, essentially.
Right. I would have to agree with that. I would have to agree with that. It is a reflection of ourselves. It's now okay. The choice part is interesting because it is all our choice.
Mm-hmm.
On just a base level, no one is forcing us to do anything.
Right.
We're engaging with each other like this in a public square that just happens to be on the internet. But
But
I
I
do
think I know what you're
think
gonna say, and I love it. Go ahead. But
I do think that we can be incentivized, and I don't want to use the word coerced, but incentivized towards certain behaviors. I want to. Yep.
have you been to Las Vegas?
Yeah, multiple times.
Okay. So when you go to Las Vegas and you go into a casino, there are very common things about casinos. You've never gone into a casino where you go onto the casino floor and all around you is natural light, is open windows with natural light. It's for a reason. The casino wants you to lose your sense of time. Why? So that you stay in the casino longer. It used to be that people could smoke in the casino. When people smoke, they tend to drink more. When they drink more, they tend to gamble more. When they gamble more, they tend to lose more. Why? Because the house always wins. Yeah. In the 90s, it was when they stopped people being able to smoke in most of the casinos. They started pumping in, what do you call that? Essential oils into the air. Aromatherapy. They started pumping in aromatherapy, and they started manipulating the light so that they created a sort of daytime cycle, only that cycle was probably off by a few hours so that you could get lost in time. It's like going into a fairyland, right? Where you get lost in time there. In my opinion, there is no difference between that and what happens inside a social media app. And the Vegas casinos are reputed to hire psychologists and behaviorists to understand human behavior in order to be able to, put it diplomatically, if I'm super diplomatic, guide people to stay longer.
Right.
If we look back to Facebook, when Facebook first started, there was a thumbs up for the like, but there was no little flat heart. Little red heart with a ding when you touched it. Little tiny subtle things like that bring you deeper into the experience.
So
Because,
you would so
go ahead.
On that topic. Okay, so you mentioned how they basically were hired experts to design these casinos for the sole purpose of keeping people inside. There's information that came out that is exactly what Facebook did and continues to do now. They hire PhDs, extremely brilliant mathematicians, extremely brilliant philosophers, extremely brilliant psychologists, and sociologists. And they put these people in a room and they pay them millions of dollars. And they say, we want you to make this on purpose as addictive as possible. We want people to stay on these apps, stay in these spaces for as long as humanly possible.
Right.
And so then every single choice that they made from a thumbs up to a heart from a the way the feed is designed, from the way certain videos are incentivized over others. Everything is extremely meticulously designed
The way the
to
algorithm was built. Yeah.
that's the algorithm. That is the algorithm. And it's going to be interesting to see how two things I've thought about recently how this is going to evolve because no one could have I personally didn't suspect this is where we'd be 13 years ago. I didn't know some of the things that have come about on social media would even exist. You know, if someone would have explained the concept of a TikTok star who
Yeah.
who mouths the words to songs for 5 seconds and then that's what makes them millions of dollars.
And that generates revenue. Yeah.
Yeah. That concept I couldn't have foreseen that. You know, I'd be like, what is that? That's not, they're not doing anything. But I think the
Yeah, but if
concept
you
of
remember
doing
back to
something,
your days of watching YouTube all the time, that's what YouTube was too.
it's just evolved. It's just
Yeah.
evolved. And so
Yeah.
where it'll be in 10 years, 12 years from now, I have no idea. It's too
Yeah.
hard to anticipate, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know me very well that I'm always looking to connect dots. At my essence as a creative person, as an intellectual, I'm a puzzle maker. I'm always trying to assemble pictures and always trying to connect dots from where I am or where I've been to where we're going. I think my eye world, we did that quite successfully because many of the things that we're seeing now technologically, we talked about in 2012. And
Yeah.
you and I talk about that all the time. Hey, remember when we talked about this thing or remember when this subject came up? So it really interests me where we might be going. And I try as hard as I can to look at the component parts of what's going on now and see if we continue along this line, where might we end up, sort of extrapolating from a single point to multiple points if possible. It's just
Mhm.
the way my brain works. And that's becoming increasingly difficult. I think it's becoming increasingly difficult because we're moving at a speed that we could not possibly fathom and that the average person definitely cannot fathom. Technologically, we're going at speeds where, and it's hard to use the word innovation for me because a lot of it is just taking the next step, not necessarily creating something brand new. Um, but the new steps that would have happened 2, 3, 5, 10 years apart are now happening 2, 3, 5, 10 days apart, hours in some instances.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. There was something that I remember from my eye world about how technology would slowly begin to grow closer to our bodies.
But yeah.
And we're watching that happen now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it started with the smartwatch, but now then it was VR goggles, and those were like, it was still like a playland,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
now we have these mixed
Rings.
reality. Right, right. Rings that monitor how well you sleep, and all of your watch can save you from, having a stroke because it
Mm-hmm.
detects anomaly in your heart rhythm or your blood pressure or something that and compares that data to what it's been tracking for 6, 9, 12 months.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the tech is this small and it's like, you know, I I know you've seen what Elon's doing with Neuralink at this very moment.
Yeah. That's the next step, right? Because we have seen, say, for instance, with VR goggles,
Mm-hmm.
the new glassware is quite literally, half an inch closer to your eyes than are the bigger, Meta goggles or Apple Vision Pro or anything like that. So even that, we're getting closer and closer to being inside the system. And when you talk about Tesla's Neuralink stuff, now you're definitely going into neural computing, where you begin to fuse humans with machines. It's not a question of when it's going to happen; it's already happening.
Yeah. I
And
just think
when you talk about what's now we're beginning to extrapolate, right? So when we talk about things like Neuralinks, why couldn't a next step be now robotic, being able to replace, not just out of necessity, not just because I've lost a limb, but because I choose to enhance my physical being, my physical self, with artificial parts.
right. A- And that gets a little sticky because,
Explain.
okay, let's say, because then then we got to talk about things like wealth inequality, right?
Uh-huh. See, splinters. Yeah.
If someone can afford a bionic limb that restores X amount of whatever, or or all it really takes is one person to influence a small group of people to influence a larger group of people, as we've seen
Yep.
with social media,
Yep.
as we've seen with many other different types of technologies. You got everybody doing a TikTok dance. And although that may seem vapid, if you extrapolate that out to, oh, well, this person got a bionic arm. Why don't I
Right.
get one?
Right. This person got a Neuralink. Why don't I get one?
Why don't I get one? In
Yeah.
fact, why don't I get my entire family one? Because it has this, and this benefit. And I don't know if you've seen the show Altered Carbon, but one
Yes.
of the
Yes.
one
I
of
love that
the
show, actually.
ideas, yeah, it's fire. I might rewatch it honestly.
Now I
One of
might
the
too.
topics, one of the topics that they cover or that they delve into is like the inequality between the people who can enhance themselves and the people who can't, and then the people who revolt against enhancements altogether.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's the
Yeah.
religious group in that show who say that enhancing your body in that way is not how God designed you.
Right.
And
Right.
so now you're choosing to overstep the boundary of how you were designed, divinely created.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's gonna be a bit strange because, let's say that the chasm grows wider and wider, and the people who can afford these bionics just get that much more enhanced
Mm-hmm.
more rapidly, and the people
Mm-hmm.
who can't are sort of stuck with traditional routes. And in the future, in the same way that we have certain people who can't afford basic necessities, and then we have
Mm-hmm.
people who can afford yachts and things like that, when that gets extrapolated out to technology and especially enhanced intelligence, that's what's going to be very strange, in my opinion. Just my opinion,
Interesting.
because
Interesting.
you'll have a super smart class, and then you'll have a class who chooses not to be or can't afford to be enhanced. And
Yeah,
at
so
the
that's
rate,
that's actually three prong then, because you're talking about the people who embrace it entirely, the people who can't afford to embrace it entirely, and the people who choose to do something else. Who choose to We talked about that back then too. That was a topic that we talked about, what I called the Great Rift,
I
where
remember that.
I think at some point we will get to a place where we advance so far in technology that part of society will split off and decide to not. And that's three prong too: the people who completely embrace it, the people who are in the middle somewhere, and then the people who decide they don't want that at all. They try to go back to more agrarian societies of having homesteads and small villages and that sort of life. I think I still believe that that's coming at some point. That's my opinion, mind you, but I still believe that that's coming. And I find this concept that you're talking about extremely interesting. You and I have more than one, and this happened with Madison too. You and I have more than one episode to do together, because we've just talked about, I think, 2 or 3 things that could be episodes unto themselves. So after we're done with this, we're going to talk about maybe coming back and giving something else a little bit more time. But
yeah,
you are a man of faith, and I don't want to get too deep into this in this particular conversation, because I think that probably is an entire, actually maybe we'll just do it as a part 2. It depends on where it leads us. But as a man of faith, and I'm a person who I consider myself to be a spiritual man, and a man who has studied theology and understands the theological side of things too. But as a man of faith, it's got to be an interesting time to be thinking about what people are actually doing in those terms, right? So when you start to talk about, you know, linking your brain to a machine, when you start to talk about the potential for people to replace parts, and if they can replace one, I can guarantee you somebody's going to replace most.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you, and you ready for this? You ready for this? This is for you, Justin. You ready for this? I can guarantee you that for some, and likely many, that opens the door, when we talked about altered carbon, that opens the door to a perceived immortality.
Right.
Which, when we start talking about it from a faith concept, what does that mean? Oh, and for anybody listening, if you're, I don't want anybody to be offended by anything that we say in terms, Justin has his particular faith, his particular journey in his faith, which I respect tremendously. Here, anywhere, you will not hear me judge anybody about their faith and their way of experiencing the divine. So I would ask you, if you're listening to this program and you start to feel a certain way, turn it off, because we have some stuff to talk about, and we're going to continue to talk about it.
Yes, we will.
And I'm not judging you. I definitely don't judge Justin. We've had some tremendously profound conversations about the divine. So if you're listening to this program and you don't want to get into that, or you have a way of thinking that there's only one way of doing it, then the rest of this program, as we continue this conversation, might not be for you. And that's with love. So Justin.
Yes.
Let's say that we're only working on that concept, and that hasn't come to pass. Come to pass. But we're only talking about connecting those dots. What do you think about that?
Okay. So, immortality and technology. Where I am right now. Growing in the faith. Shedding a lot of old layers. I would say evolving spiritually. There will be some people who, like you said, somewhere in the back of their minds, and as time goes on, they're going to be thinking about how close they can get to immortality. And in the concept of altered carbon, for those who have not seen it, the idea is that you can store your consciousness in a little metal piece
called a stack.
Technology called a stack. And you can transfer that consciousness to other physical bodies. And so now the body just becomes a host for consciousness.
Vessel, yes.
A vessel. Now, I believe as of right now, the body is already just a host for your soul and your spirit.
Right.
For those who don't believe that, maybe consciousness is what is housed, you know, in your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
As of right now, we don't have a strict scientific definition, a material definition. My personal opinion is that trying to materialize the soul, which is an immaterial thing, is a lost cause.
So along this journey of technological advancement, as you know, as you remembered from class, we started talking about how technology was getting closer and closer and closer to our bodies. So we end up with the idea of potentially being able to transfer some as data, transfer some or all of our personalities, our my opinion would be part of our personalities, which is data driven, as opposed to something deeper as what you would consider the soul, what I might consider consciousness. But we're looking for the ability to transfer that into a hard drive, into a chip of some sort, so that this human body, even if we plug it into and we've seen that in science fiction too, even if we plug it into a robotic body, lives on. And what does that mean? What does that mean for what we now define as faith, which is based in the soul, which is based in belief, which is based in emotion? I mean, these are questions that we might not be able to answer, but still, I think it's important that we talk about it.
Yeah. I can't claim to have the answer to that, but
I mean, I think I can ask you, what do you think about that? What is your opinion of that? What would your opinion be of that if we get to that point? And then, when you think about AI might be able to put some of the other pieces together to sort of rebuild consciousness based on the data that it's fed, right? I don't know.
Yeah. That one is interesting. I think on the so on the topic of immortality and people not wanting to die. If you had to ask someone, would you rather die or not? Most people, at least I think, would probably say, well, I want to live as long as I feel fit. And maybe for some people that's 500 years, and for others that's 1,000, and for others they want to continue to see and experience what they deem as beautiful in this life, and even the not so beautiful, but just the human experience. They love the human experience, and they appreciate the human experience, and they want to keep learning, and they want to keep growing, and they want to keep evolving, and they want to see more family members down the line beyond 2 generations, and they want to, try more things and learn more things. And I think that is a beautiful thing. But as far as what that means for belief, I believe in Jesus Christ. That is my savior. That is the place of transformation. Beyond even transformation, salvation. I personally find it hard to say that even at the extreme that AI as a data-driven tool or technology as a tool to, I don't want to use the word replicate, but continue on this thing that we have, right? Life, this gift that we're given, which is life, and the thoughts that we think, which is our consciousness. For some people, I do think their belief will go away because they will find no need to believe in something beyond, because they are the beyond. They can see the beyond, and they can live the beyond.
Oh, yeah.
But the question is, really, what do you seek? Because if you seek a continuation of the same, which you've had when you're mortal, versus what you believe you can have when you're immortal, which I do want to say, people will still have belief in the future. They will still have belief in what they think could be.
I agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
But let's say for people who are people of faith, I think if you have true faith, that will not go away. I think if you have true faith, you understand that is beyond the material world. It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And can your soul be transformed? Can your soul be saved? Can you be made new and renewed in your mind, body, and spirit through tech? Me personally, I don't think so, just because I have a savior, right?
Right.
Who is beyond all of that and yet sees it himself.
Right. Right.
Sees it all, has seen it all before it was conceived by people. So I personally, any evolution of what we think could make us gods, what we think, because what will happen is we will begin to believe that we are God. We are gods. If there's no need for a God to save us from death, as some people would say,
Right.
then we are God because we've saved ourselves.
Interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, who is a tech professional, and he said something to me very interesting. Very interesting. He said that we are advancing technologically to the point that we can prove God. We can prove creation through our own creations.
So what does that mean then for people?
Yeah, it's a good
How do they
question.
view themselves? How do they view themselves?
How do they view themselves? What, like the question you asked before, what are you after? What's the goal? What's the purpose? I mean, I've been giving it a lot of thought in terms of where we are technologically, and there are kind of the pillars of religion in where we are technologically. We have, in fact, created digital beings. We have, in fact, created a digital universe, and a digital universe and digital beings that are beyond our understanding. They're beyond our intelligence. But we as human beings did that, right? I mean, you can also argue that we as human beings who are the creations of God then turn around and, right? From a religious perspective, from a faith-based perspective, what does that mean? Like, do we can we consider ourselves now creators because we have created this thing in the sort of God context? You know what I mean?
AI is hyper intelligent and will only continue to get more intelligent, and I would think I've heard someone say, you at the point with which AI can then create something as profound as us creating AI itself, where does that put us? Because then we can see ourselves as the creator of something which can intelligently design something else.
Right. It's a huge paradox.
And you know, that's a tough one to wrestle with. I mean, like I said, I hold my personal beliefs, which I believe is the truth, and that there is an ultimate creator from which all this stemmed from in the first place. But I do think that there will be people who make intelligence a religion, make intelligence their God. That's where it's going to get interesting, because people, like I said, I believe as the truth that people will surely find that there is no saving yourself, nor is there having something that appears as God saving you. It'll be hard to tell for some people because they'll see, you know, they'll wonder, well, what's the difference? You know,
Right.
some people might try
Right.
and extrapolate God itself, God himself, and say, well, these things are the same, and this is also the same, and I can do this as well.
Yeah, it gets interesting when you think about the Bible and you start to think about religious stories, parables, edicts, principles, especially from a Christian standpoint, which I must also say I'm not a Christian at this point in my life. I was born into Catholicism. I studied religion as a self-study as well as in school. I find it interesting what people believe in and how they believe and how they have faith. I find it interesting what humans will do or not do in the name of their faith. So I'm deeply passionate about the study of how people interact with the divine from their perspective. But I can't help but think back to the way we were taught as kids, looking back into Old Testament, looking back into idolatry, right? But at the same time, again, thinking about human behavior, we have created, and I talked about this in the first episode too, and I'm going to continue talking about it because I think it's important to talk about. We have created an intersecting universe. I would dare say an intersecting dimension, an intersecting reality to ours, a whole world there, beyond a world, I think. Most of which, at this point, not unlike humans living on Earth and there being the entire cosmos that we can't see or understand or travel to. And when you start talking about creating that environment, that ecosystem, as it were, and then creating digital beings that are beyond our intelligence within that world, that can see more than we can see, that have access to every bit of data ever in the history of humanity, which none of us as human beings can process. It's not that hard. Like you're saying, it's not that hard to see where we can end up in a place where people are actually considering that in a way divine. I think you're 100% right. We're not that far away from somebody creating an AI that is a prophet, and that could be a prophet that is not based in what we know, religions that we know, but create something new.
I want to ask you, what information do you think will be revealed? Because that's the interesting thing, is what new belief system will be formed out of this hyperintelligence. It being able to take in as much as it can take in, because now it's at a fact where it's starting to make its own conclusions and find new discoveries in materials, in science, in all these different types of things. And so now if you have the thing that can discover something new, one, what do you think, Jose, will it discover on its own? And secondly, what do you think it'll help human beings discover about stuff, about things?
Wow. That's a huge question. Those are two huge questions. I'll start with this. We have created something that is quickly becoming unknown to us who created it, that is quickly becoming space that we can't navigate our way through. So we don't know. For the average everyday person who this program is for, we want to talk about on the ground experience here. It's coming to a point where we can't fathom something that's that astronomically big. And last week when the news about SEAL came out, SEAL is the language model that was developed at, I think it was MIT, that can now write its own code in order to, so it was the effort to stop LLMs from getting stuck.
Right.
Because LLMs, once they run out of data, they get stuck. And this was the effort to allow AI to go beyond that by understanding itself and how it learns and being able to push those boundaries further by writing its own code. So where we're definitely headed toward is the digital beings that we created becoming autonomous. We're definitely headed there, for sure. How they behave beyond that, we can't possibly know, because it's an intelligence beyond our own. Its rules are going to be different, because its existence is different. It does not exist in flesh and bone and belief and emotion. It doesn't exist there.
Mm.
It exists someplace else. It exists apart from that. So I don't think we can possibly know what that is going to be for sure. I can tell you it's going to be different. I can tell you the reference point, the point of view is going to be different. It's going to be a non-human reference point.
Right. What does that even look like?
We don't know. We don't know. And our race to make it happen has become more important than asking these important questions. And when I think about it in terms of my opinion of right or wrong, I think that is a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea to make something just for the sake of making it, and then to get in competition with other people to make it faster, better, more intelligent, beyond what the last guy did, without asking some very, very, very important questions in terms of its impact on us as a society, as humanity.
Yeah. I know you've heard the quote, we thought about the fact that we could, but we never stopped to think if we should.
It's one of my favorite quotes. It's actually from a film. It's actually from a film that people would kind of think is a throwaway. It's from Jurassic Park. The mathematician, the genius mathematician, Jeff Goldblum's character, said that very thing. You were so busy thinking about whether or not you could, you didn't consider whether or not you should. And I think that is the great dilemma of the human experience when it comes to technological advancement at this time. You see parallels in it in history. You know, when the H-bomb was first made, the scientists that were working to develop the H-bomb
Yep.
were looking at it strictly from a scientific standpoint. Can we make this happen without necessarily looking toward the human application of that science?
Right. And what's strange is we made that mistake with social media. We just built and built and built and pushed more algorithms out on people and said more is better. And what we ended up with was a lot of fractures in the ways that people see themselves, and the ways that people communicate with each other, and the ways that people move about the world, and the respect people have for each other. All these things that were just normal in human society became this weird fractured mush thing. And social media blurred the lines between what's real and what's not. Even down to interactions of, you know, how you would talk to somebody. You know, there's a lot of provocateur, and it's like 97, 98, 99% of the people who say inflammatory things on social media would never stand in front of the face of somebody and say that exact
And
thing.
say those things. Yeah.
Wouldn't happen.
You're reminding me, we had this conversation back then too. Yeah.
And so it's going to be real interesting. I do think, I don't know. I think another interesting thing is to what level will we subdue ourselves to this? Because if there is some hyper intelligence, something that can give insight to us and create its own insight in so fast that we may not even be able to conceive of it, you know, everyone trusts the answers of GPT right now. They always trust the answers. They forget that Sam Altman himself said this can hallucinate, and all the other founders of the AI model said they can hallucinate. So just make sure to, and even the AI itself will be like, just so you know, this may or may not be. And people are like, well, no, this is fact.
They ignore that. They ignore that I think in the interest of convenience. And it's a known fact, and a study recently came out of the UK positing that 47% of the information that comes out of ChatGPT is in error, or the LLM is manufacturing things in order to give you an answer. And if we know that and we're still choosing to use that as a trusted source, what does that say about where we are as humans?
Wanting to believe something,
Mm.
wanting to believe something greater than ourselves. One interesting thing I think will happen is that although AI might reveal some new truths that, quote unquote, that maybe we haven't thought of, I think it's just going to point back to the ultimate truth, personally.
Right.
And in a way that we probably can't fathom now, but everything always points back to that. No matter what it is, and no matter how far you may think it may go, it always points back. But it's going to be interesting as that just ascends, which is, if 47% is false and yet we believe it mostly all to be true, what's going to happen when it appears even more of an expert, even more with our best interest at heart, even more interactable? Because then you start getting into, well, now we have androids that look like people, and now we've reached the uncanny valley where we can't tell. And this is years down the line, but we'll reach an uncanny valley with some hyper intelligent being that's standing right in front of us that has some manufactured skin and flesh and talks like us and looks like us and moves like us and seems like us, but it isn't.
Well, I mean, you know, you're already gonna. I mean, there's a step much closer, I think, than we are considering, because if you start to talk about robotics, robotics, humanoid form robotics, like the Tesla robot, it's right on the doorstep. It's just like cell phones. It's a matter of making it affordable enough for people to adopt it. That's all you're talking about, which leads to companion robots, which leads to worker robots, which certainly leads to robots that are powered by artificial intelligence.
All right.
So if we can become this dependent as we are on a cell phone, imagine what happens when we're talking to a physical being that can interact with us seemingly the way other humans do. And what's interesting, and this is something that I also talk about quite a bit, because it was something that somebody said to me that I thought was really profound. A guy that I talked to about technology as well, we were having a conversation, and he said, and I can't remember the question that I asked him, but he said, you know what it is, Jose, for many of us, especially generations who grew up as digital natives, we think of it this way. We think that our phone will never argue with us. And I was just blown away by that thought, because it has so many implications. So many implications. The principal implication being that we have surrendered to a one-way relationship, a relationship that's constantly confirming our bias, constantly telling us what we want to hear, constantly telling us, confirming exactly what we're putting, mirroring us in a way that is one-sided, as opposed to the complications of human relationships, right? The human relationships are muddy and dirty and difficult and all of that stuff. And to avoid the pain and the discomfort of human relationships, it becomes super easy to place that energy in a one-way relationship. So in the context of what we're talking about now, when we talk about robotics and AI-powered robotics and people using companion robotics, it's not hard to see how we can become super dependent on. So yeah, man, we have a lot to talk about. And I think that this conversation begs another conversation, begs more conversation. there's so much to cover, and I think it's interesting the way that you and I always converse about these things. We have so much to go on. You know, one thing that listeners, watchers need to know as well is that Justin is a very talented programmer. So it's an interesting thing to converse with him about both of these things at the same time. And Justin, just in conclusion, I would ask this question, and it's a tough question. It might follow into another episode. But as a person, how challenging is it for you to reconcile the part of you that clearly loves technology and is fascinated by technology, and the part of you that loves your faith and considers himself a man of God? How challenging is it to reconcile those two things, or do you feel like you don't have to?
The only thing I know is I'm just going to follow God. That's all I know. Everything to the best of my ability. I am just a person. And
That's your true north.
that
That's
is
your
what,
anchor in this world.
yes. Particularly as I'm growing closer now at this point in life. Which, you know, I I'm blessed to be in a here. Blessed to be here. To be able to say that. But how do I reconcile with that? The only thing I can do is compare what is happening, compare the experiences I'll have, compare the spaces I'll be in and the technology I'll use and things like that to the word that my belief is founded on in the first place. Because I have to compare everything to that. I have to compare what I do now to that. And as I'm still learning and growing, my mindset about a lot of things has changed.
Right.
Not because of
Yes,
me,
that's true. That's very
not
true.
because of
That's
me,
very true.
but because of amazing people around me and God. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, because I think back. I mean, we've known each other a long time now, so I've been lucky enough to witness your journey in your faith. Um, I've been lucky enough to see the evolution of your faith from a faith that was based in what your parents believed and what was mandated for you as a child, and then moving into a different space in your young adulthood, and now finding a new segment of your journey as a man of faith, um, not that long ago.
not that
Uh,
long.
but the difference being your choice. You're choosing this part of your journey as opposed to having your journey dictated to you by others. Which I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that's a beautiful thing to watch you and listen to you as you make this journey. To me, I mean, I didn't have anything to do with it, but I'm super proud.
Thank
You know
you.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God, honestly.
Yeah.
Uh, it's all him. It's all him. And all I can do is really trust that if I follow him, he'll guide me in the ways to how to navigate this. Some things are going to look very strange in the future, and there will be. By the way, I appreciate that. I want to say I appreciate that a lot. That means a lot. That means like, I'm. If you see it from the outside, that means I'm like going somewhere, which I know I am. But it's great to hear someone, outside perspective say something like that, especially somebody who's known me for so long and has seen that evolution that you talked about. Um, and sort of like a yeah. But I'm not afraid of it, nor do I think. I think the one thing for me to do is just stay vigilant, as with anything
Right.
else in this
Yeah.
world. Um,
Yeah.
is to pray that my choices are made in alignment with the one true Christ, and how I navigate things. And I know that I can be susceptible to certain things. I know that, you know, I have a past. I know that human beings can be deceived by something that inflates them, something that,
Hmm.
because I was,
Yep.
and even right now, I would say I still am to a degree. Eh, one thing that's interesting is how everything is choice. Everything is choice. And so will I
That
let
much right there.
will I let any evolution of anything or any reinforcement or enhancement of me and my own mind having access to that in the future, will I let that get in the way of what I know and believe to be true? Uh, will I let that influence or change anything of about the word that's written? I should not. And all I can do is really just pray that you know, that the Lord keeps me in that way, because I'm just a person. And you know, it's going to be interesting. I wonder how you feel about that. How do you feel about that for your own self and how your own journey, your own spiritual journey?
I feel like I have a path, and I mean, the reason you and I have such interesting conversations because I think there is a lot of parallels between the way you feel in your faith and I feel in my spirituality. I feel like I have a path, and that path is to live a good life while I stand on this planet and contribute as best I can to the lives of the people around me in a positive and productive manner, which directly connects me to the divine, because that is the path set out by the divine. And I am fascinated by technology. I say it all the time. I'm not a hater about technology. I think it has very specific implications for us on the social level, but I'm not a hater. I have every bit of, I'm looking right now on my desk. I have every bit of technology you could possibly think of on my desk right now. But I am very specific about what you said earlier. It all comes down to choice. And I am very specific about bringing myself back to me choosing and not having my choices made for me, whether that's subconsciously by being carried away by the digital tsunami or by not being conscious of how much I'm using these things, what my own relationship is with them, and constantly reminding myself to come back to making choices for myself, whether that's taking a day to go sit on a tree root and meditate and feel the earth around me, or having an alarm on my phone that says, put your phone away at 9 p.m., or having a regimen of reading an actual book before I close my eyes at night to kind of reset my brain from the digital experience that is, the laptop and two phones, one for work and one for personal, and social media, and running in pursuit of signal, and trying to create an art show, and all these things that require digital work, always coming back to resetting myself and taking resting control from the digital spaces to being present in this place,
Yeah.
understanding that I'm a breathing, thinking, loving, emotional being. That's my path. And at right now, I don't plan to stray from it, just as you don't plan to stray from your path as a man of faith. And I think if we make the choice, if we consciously make the choice to always reset and remind ourselves and be conscious of where we are so that we can remind ourselves to reset, I think that becomes super important. I feel like I need to say to our audience again, the opinions about faith, the beliefs that we hold as men, just both Justin and myself, are ours. They're not meant in any way to try to convert anybody to anything or place on somebody else a path that doesn't belong to them. So if you work with us, if you become part of this community, if you comment, if you interact with us on that basis, on the basis that these things are ours. They belong to us, and we're not trying to impose them on anybody else. They're just important to talk about in the context of the social impacts of technology on our everyday lives, which is what In Pursuit of Signal is about. Last thoughts on that, Justin? Did I answer your question well?
You did. You did. I would just say the world is headed to a very interesting place. We thought everything we've seen before was unprecedented, and it was, but never before have we gotten to a point where something that can think and reason like us is walking among us.
Yeah. Yeah.
What will be interesting is this. Well, I'll put it this way. You have always said something very profound, and that is you show it in your actions more than you say, but that's just to remain deliberate. Everything you do is deliberate. So I've never seen you get taken away and tossed back and forth and swayed by whatever technology, whether it was 13 years ago or whether it's today. And I don't see it happening to you later on when or if you have a bionic arm. I don't see it happening.
Right.
I don't see it happening.
Yeah,
and there's a quote that you said. There's something that you always used to say. For those who don't know, Jose was my theater teacher in high school as well. And in order to gather a room together and hone everybody in, Jose, can you say it was about being in this space at this time
for this purpose? Yeah.
And I think you carry that every single day when you walk around.
Actually, you're making me emotional now, because you're saying back to me with some acknowledgement and confirmation for me that that's the way to live. To be present as much as humanly possible is the way to live. And I say that to people, and they think that I'm saying it as though it's easy. It's not. It requires practice. It requires practice. It's hard, but to deliberately decide to be in your skin at any given moment is the key to living, and it's the key to experiencing things as human beings, is to be right here in this place for this purpose, and now that I'm bawling like a baby, thank you, Justin Wiggins, so much. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being here with me today. We definitely have more to talk about. We got a lot of shit to talk about.
Definitely.
And I want to thank the audience for joining us in Pursuit of Signal, a deep dive into the social impacts of technology on our everyday lives. We have loads to talk about. Please subscribe to the Substack. You can find us at In Pursuit of Signal on Substack. We will be on every major podcasting platform, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us on Instagram. You Google us and you'll find us. We are a growing community of people who are curious about understanding and holding on to choice based on how we relate to our technology. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining me.
It was an honor. It's an honor, always.
And we'll talk again soon. There's another episode to come for you and me. There's definitely another episode to come.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right.